Welcome to the Exam Study Expert Podcast, helping you ace your exams at school and university through the psychology of high performance and the science of studying smarter, not harder. It's my pleasure to introduce your host, the Cambridge-trained memory psychologist and exam success coach, William Wadsworth.
Hello and welcome to the Exam Study Experts podcast. Today is all about the little device you carry around with you all day, every day, if you're like most people, your smartphone. And according to a survey by Rescue Time, the average person spends 3 hours, 15 minutes on their phone every single day. Before you scoff and presume you're an exception, do take a quick look at your own screen time report. It's often under settings in your phone menu, and see what you clock in at per day. So today is a fun little collection of quick things you can do to tidy up and tame the tech in your pocket to make sure it's working for you and not the other way round. 10 little actions you can take right now, they're super quick, to make sure your phone is serving your goals. This episode is going out towards the start of the year, so it has a nice sort of new year, new you vibe to it. But of course, you can do these things at any time of year, and they should help you reduce your smartphone distraction through the day and help you use it more productively and in a way that is ultimately more in line with your values and what you want to achieve each day. Now, because the content of this episode is quite visual in nature, I've also recorded a video version of this same lesson with screenshots demonstrating the things I'm talking about, which you can find. You find that video version on the Exam Study Expert YouTube channel, which is linked in the description. So, I've split the 10 tips into two broad parts. Part A is on apps, what you've got and how they're organised. Part B is on settings, how you've got things set to help keep everything organised and on track. So, let's dive in. Part A, as I say, is all about making your apps work for you, not the other way around. So, let's start by taking a look at the apps you've got and how they are organised. Tip number 1. Chuck out the junk. If you don't use an app, let's get rid of it. Simple as that. It will not only free up storage and screen real estate, it will also help clear mental clutter. You might be surprised how much lighter and freer you feel after just deleting a bunch of apps you never use off your phone. If you've got the offload unused apps feature to save on storage enabled on your phone, you can look out for, in particular, the little cloud symbol beside an app title, which means you haven't used that app in a while. Your phone's realised that and it's removed it from your device, and it's now simply stored in the cloud. And if you wanted to open it, it would need to re-download before you can open it. Wherever you see those cloud symbols, that's obviously a prime candidate for deletion. You may decide that some of these rarely used apps need to stay. You know, you don't use them very often, but you want them there for when you do need them. And you may also notice there are some apps that don't have the cloud symbol that also really should go. So get to deleting all those unused apps and the ones you don't want on your phone anymore. Tip number 2, make high-value apps prominent. So some apps on your phone are going to be associated with positive habits that you want to encourage and nurture. So let's make sure those apps are as prominent as possible. So for me, that's apps like Headspace for meditation, and Strava for running, maybe the reading app. I want those nice and prominent on page 1, so I don't need to go hunting for them. And moreover, they're there right in front of me and kind of nudging me to use them and do those positive activities. Tip number 3, for everything else, organise it into folders. So for everything that's sort of lower value, but I still want it there on my phone because it's useful, I like to use folders to keep everything else organised. And if you haven't revisited your digital filing system and the way you've got your folders set up in a while, again, nice to take a little moment to do that now. Does the system still work for you, or are there any little tweaks to the categorisation that would make better sense for you and where you're at now? If so, amend how you've got your folder set up accordingly. Tip number 4, bring the grey area apps to heel. So when I say grey area apps, I mean these were apps that just about survived the great cull of tip number 1. You decided not to delete them. You've kept them on your phone. But these are things that you perhaps want to limit your usage of. You don't want to use them too much. You can't go all the way to delete them, but you'd rather not use them so much. So we might be thinking social media, we might be thinking maybe games, maybe entertainment apps like YouTube or Netflix. There are 5 ways I think you can bring these grey area apps to heel. This is quite a big tip, really. It's almost 5 mini tips within this one main tip, all related, of course, to kind of taming the apps that you'd rather not use so much, but you kind of think you need to keep on your device. So 5 little ideas for you within this one main tip. So the first idea is to revisit your decision not to delete it. Maybe you can get away without it on your phone. Maybe you can access the same service on your desktop. Or, if not, a good compromise might be to simply download and then uninstall it on the rare occasions you do actually need the app. So this is how I now tame Facebook. So I downloaded Facebook for the month when I was running a program a couple of months ago, The Scholar's Way, which had a pop-up Facebook group associated with it. And I wanted to be as present as possible in that group, reacting to comments, answering questions that people were asking. So I had Facebook on my phone during that program because I wanted to be as present and supportive as possible in the course forum. But after that program wrapped up, I deleted the Facebook app again. So I still use Facebook, just from my desktop, and I might log in once every day or 2 rather than multiple times a day if it was on my phone. So that's the first option. The second option is to make the app trickier to access. So bury that app deep in a folder on your final page of apps, maybe even into the second page of a folder, so it's really difficult to find. A word of warning though, it's never going to be that difficult to find. It'll always be only a few swipes and taps away. And it's remarkable how quickly fingers can relearn how to instinctively swipe and tap their way back to that dangerous app. So this sounds like quite a neat trick in theory, but in practice, you may find it only ends up being quite a temporary fix. The third option you've got to tame these apps is to switch accounts or log out of the app entirely. So the friction of having to log back into a service can sometimes be all that you need to remove temptation to use it, unless you really need it, in which case you'll go in and key in your username and password. And avoid having your password saved in your phone's kind of password bank if you're using this trick. So you need to re-enter the whole thing manually. Just that extra little bit of friction. Sometimes that's all it takes to remove the temptation to log in. So this is now how I tame YouTube. Actually, a slight version on this. I actually stay logged into YouTube on my phone, but it's now under a new account. So I use this new account and I strictly only watch inspirational or educational channels on this new account. So that's what fills up my feed and my recommendations. For a time, I actually used YouTube logged out, but I found that worse because it didn't save my watch preferences. And then I just had all sorts of like random clickbait and junk, filling up my recommendations, or, whatever YouTube thought like some random person that you didn't know anything about its watching preferences, and would want to watch. So by having the account and YouTube knowing my watch preferences and only watching inspirational or educational stuff, that's now what is recommended to me. And so it means I can still use YouTube in the way I want to use it, which for me is filling sort of 15 minute little gaps, maybe while I'm having a sandwich over lunch. And I like to watch things like, educational content, like I really enjoy CGP Gray's YouTube channel. Shout out to him, fantastic content creator, or maybe some kind of personal development stuff. Things that kind of inspire me, maybe feed my mind, but certainly isn't so addictive and compelling I can't then put it down and get back to work when it's time to do so. So third option is control how you logged in, maybe log out of the app or maybe use a different account to access it. The fourth option is a simple one: set hard limits on the amount of time you want to use that app for. So if you only want to use it for max 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, you can set that option on most phones now. So look under screen time settings for that. I've personally never used this option, but it's there and maybe a good fit for you. And then the fifth and final option is to turn notifications off. So sometimes the problematic dimension of the app is it continually kind of pinging you and nagging you for your attention. So turning notifications off could be a way to keep it on your phone without it being quite so distracting. So this is how I tame WhatsApp and the email app on my phone. I still find them both valuable communications tools, and I want them there on my phone, but I turned off all the notifications. Crucially, even that red blob that indicates new messages are waiting. So it's a nice, clean experience when I'm in my phone. Like, I only open WhatsApp or email on my terms. So I very rarely access the email app on my phone, but if I need it, I can proactively open it, perhaps when I need to sort of check a message about where I need to go when I'm out on the road doing some speaking or something. WhatsApp is my main way to keep in touch with friends and family, but no one ever needs an instant response to a WhatsApp message, so it can wait until I have time to check it proactively. Usually that's kind of outside work hours, so kind of in the evening. I'll then open the app and reply to messages when it suits me and my schedule, rather than notifications or even that kind of passive-aggressive red blob urging me to open the app and respond. Close friends and family know that if they need me in a genuine hurry, if there's a message that really needs to kind of get through like ASAP, they can call me or send a traditional text message, which will pop up. Notification will pop up. Traditional text message rather than WhatsApp. So, if you're going down this route, kind of re-educating your close friends and family, how to contact you in case of a genuine urgency or emergency. So this is quite a big tip, this one. So let me just do a quick mini recap of the 5 options we've talked about for taming grey area apps. Number 1, delete them entirely and perhaps reinstall on a temporary basis as needed, as I do now with Facebook. Number 2, bury them deep in a folder. Number 3, log out of the app or perhaps use a fresh account with it, as I do with YouTube. Number 4, set hard limits on how long you want to use the app for. Or number 5, turn the notifications off, as I do with WhatsApp and email. That final point, notifications, segues us nicely into part B of this episode, which is all about setting up your settings to set you up to succeed. So we've now got our apps in order. Let's go now into the settings menu and see if we can't tweak a few things to help us be more productive. So for our 5th main tip, let's do a notifications audit. I raised this as an idea to help you tame troublesome apps, but I think it's well worth opening the notifications section and going through and auditing the lot and making sure that, frankly, as many notifications are off as possible. Now, when I was creating this episode, I presumed that I had all my notifications off. That's what I thought I had. And I thought, if anything, when I was going to create the sort of screenshots, screen recordings for the YouTube version of this episode with the kind of on-screen walkthrough, I thought I might need to turn some notifications back on in order that I could then model turning them off again. But as it turned out, I actually still had quite a few notifications still on. They were often from apps that rarely sent notifications, but they did sometimes, even if it's just like once a week. Because it wasn't that frequent, I'd never gone to the trouble of turning them off. But the aggregate is that I was maybe still getting 1 or 2 notifications a day that I didn't need. These notifications weren't serving me, even rare as they were, so I've now flipped all of those off too. And just to re-emphasize, I don't only mean the pop-ups and the banners, but when I'm talking about notifications, I also really recommend flipping off those kind of buttons or badges on apps, that red splodge that indicates new activity. A new message, for example, in email or WhatsApp. Those blobs and badges are still distracting and compelling you to act on them when you check your phone. If you don't need them, and you probably don't in a lot of cases, let's get rid of those too. Main tip number 6 is a quick one. Disable location tracking. So this one, I understand, is a good way to help conserve your battery life. Go into your location tracking settings and basically flip it all off, or at least set to only when using the app, unless it's something that you think you really need to leave enabled. So nice little way to conserve a bit of battery life there. So from battery to storage, main tip number 7 is moving over to your storage settings. So let's go into the storage menu. Sometimes there'll be a recommendation there. So for me, when I checked, there was a suggestion to enable auto deletion of old podcast episodes downloaded to the podcast app, which if I enabled that feature would save a whopping 9 gigabytes, which for me is about 15% of my entire phone storage capacity. And it cost me 0 inconvenience because they were old episodes that I'd already listened to. So I hastily flipped that option on. That sounded like a good little win. You may then want to check down the list of things that's taking up storage, especially if you're getting close to your storage limit. Perhaps there are things that are clogging up storage space. You can either chuck out entirely or move over and save into the cloud, move off your device storage. Tip number 8, let's take a look now at our display settings and in particular our night mode settings. So phones these days have night mode, which is basically to dial down the blue light from the screen and helps to support healthy sleep, particularly if you're using the phone close to bedtime. Best of all is to not use screens at all close to bedtime, but if you have to use a screen, at least turn night mode on. You can set default times for it. So for me, I have it to turn on at 8:30 p.m., which for me is sort of an hour hour or so before bedtime. But I also suggest taking a look at the intensity setting as well as the times, which is kind of the extent to which the screen goes orangey, and really the higher the better. So I recommend dialing up the intensity of night mode all the way to the max, so it's blocking out as much blue light as possible. Tip number 9, while we're in display settings, consider refreshing your wallpaper or your background. You see your phone background multiple times per day, every time you pick up your phone, which for many people is dozens of times per day. And I recommend setting it to something that's either beautiful, like art or nature, inspiring or meaningful, like a family photo, or perhaps even functional, like the periodic table if you're a chemist, or grammar tables for languages, or maybe a set of useful equations you constantly have to look up. So if you haven't changed your wallpaper in a while, consider refreshing it to something that will either inspire you, bring you joy, or be useful to you. Finally, number 10, let's take a look back at all our handiwork and review the impact. We can take a snapshot of how things are today, and then maybe you check back again next week and see how things have changed. Let's look at our screen time report. So when you tap into your screen time report, you will see your daily average. So for me, it's 3 hours, 10 minutes, which sounds like quite a lot. But then when I dig in and look at the breakdown by app, my top 5 most used apps this week are YouTube, Google, Duolingo, Headspace, and Google Maps. So just to kind of think about how that time breaks down, and particularly those kind of top 5. So Google Maps is about getting from A to B. I use it as a sat-nav in the car. Like, I've got no concerns about that screen time. Like, that is just fulfilling a very necessary function to get me where I need to be. Headspace is for meditation, and Duolingo is for language learning. And in both cases, I take it as a very positive stat that I am spending time on these things. That's good screen time. I want to improve that, or at least maintain it. So I'm quite happy about that. Looking to the top 2, though, that's Google and YouTube. Both of these are slightly grey areas because it would depend, I think, what I was doing on these apps. So I often use Google to look up useful things for life or work, and sometimes for light reading while winding down. But it could also be a source of procrastination surfing. Similarly, I used YouTube in addition to what I was talking earlier about using it for kind of educational or inspiring entertainment during breaks. I also use it quite a lot for background music while I work, particularly if I can't find a particular track on Spotify. So there'll be quite a bit of that time showing up in the YouTube stats as well, kind of just using it for background music. I think overall I'm pretty comfortable that although my 3 hours, 10 minutes a day sounds pretty high, I'm comfortable that the time I'm spending on those various things is in line with what's important to me. Like, there's not really anything when I look back at that, and particularly when I review the details of kind of how I'm using that time, the various things I'm actually that contribute to that 3 hour, 10 minute total. That I look at that and I think that all looks reasonable. There's nothing I'd particularly want to change. However, if you see an app there that's soaking up a lot of your time and you don't feel comfortable about that, head back a few steps, back to tip number 4, and let's bring that app to heel, or perhaps simply just delete it for good. Over the years, there have definitely been times I've checked my stats and seen some silly little games sneakily soaking up large swathes of my time, or Facebook in the past has been a culprit here. And horrified, I'll go right away and delete it pronto to stop that time sink dead in its tracks. These days, by the way, I have 0 games installed on my phone and don't plan to look back. I think that's the way I want my phone, game free as a device that supports me, not distracts me. So I'll round up these 10 top tips in just a moment. So I leave you with a summary. But just before I do, I just wanted to mention that YouTube channel again. So if you're a long-time listener, this is a new thing for where we are now, start of 2024. YouTube has been something I've been thinking a lot about generally over the years, and particularly more recently. And so many people have said that I really should be doing stuff on YouTube. So I'm going to experiment with that. I'm going to give it a go. If you head to the channel right now, you will find a couple of main things. So firstly, I'm gradually putting the entire back catalogue of podcast episodes over to YouTube. So that's sort of happening at a rate of 3 episodes a day. So that's transferring over quite quickly. And that's really just as an alternative way for people to find and enjoy this very podcast. But there's some special video content there as well. There's, I think you'll find 3 videos there at time of broadcasting this. So we're starting off with 3, including, as I mentioned, a video version of this very episode with kind of on-screen walkthroughs for everything I talk about today. Plus, there are other couple of videos there on tracking and prioritizing your study topics, and what to do the day before an exam. So if you're on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and maybe watch a couple of things and leave me a like or a comment and all that stuff if you're finding value there. And if people are enjoying what I'm doing and liking it and it's getting traction, then I will keep doing more for you in future. The easiest way to find the channel is just Google Exam Study Expert YouTube, and it should pop up as the top link. But I'll also put the direct link to the video version of this lesson in the show notes accompanying the episode. So to finally recap today's top tips. Number 1, chuck out the junk, delete those unused apps. Number 2, move your high-value apps to the first page. Number 3, reorganize your folders, make sure you're happy with how it's all set up. Number 4, bring those grey area apps to heel. Number 5, do a notifications audit and flip off as many notifications as you can. Number 6, disable location tracking. Number 7, check your storage report. Number 8, implement night mode. Number 9, perhaps consider refreshing your wallpaper. And finally, number 10, take a look at your screen time and make sure you're happy with how you're spending your time. If not, do something about it. So, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, perhaps a little bit different to normal, but it's been one I've had in mind for a little while, and I think many of you will really enjoy it, and I hope you find satisfaction and an ongoing productivity boost from doing a little spring clean of your phone. So, thanks so much for listening today, and as always, I want to wish you every success with your studies.
Wasn't that wonderful? If you're feeling inspired, why not leave us a rating and a review in your podcast app? It would make our day. Thanks again for listening, and see you soon.